Thanks all for coming. I'm going to start off by reading a joint statement from all of us to sort of encompass everything that we're going to talk about today. So, student organizations at ASU respond to racist atmosphere at Arizona State University. Tempe, Arizona. ASU student clubs and community organizations, the Black Graduate Student Association, Undocumented Students for Educational Equity, Young Democratic Socialists of America at ASU, the Multicultural Solidarity Coalition, Students for Socialism at ASU, Moviemento Estudiantil, Chicanx de Aztlan de ASU, Black Lives Matter, Phoenix Metro, No Más Muertes at ASU, the Party for Socialism and Liberation of Phoenix, and the Black African Coalition will be speaking in the Metro Room at noon on November 22nd. So that's this right now. We are gathered here as students of color and leftists who are tired of the racism and repression we are experiencing at ASU. We have consistently pleaded with ASU to keep students of color safe from the bullying and intimidation we face every single day by other ASU students, and they have done nothing. We have complained about the hostile environment at ASU for students of color, and they tell us they cannot do anything because the campus is supposedly inclusive of everyone, including Nazis. When we try to get our student newspaper, State Press, to write about the racism we face, we are repressed and silenced. When we tell ASU not to allow ICE on campus, they refuse. When white supremacist flyers are posted everywhere on campus and we ask ASU to make a statement, they are silent. But when we support Palestinians' struggle for human rights, we are labeled anti-Semitic, and Michael Crow puts out a vague statement suggesting a protest or boycott against Israeli Defense soldiers shooting Palestinians is hateful. It is obvious to us as students of color and leftists that our lives do not matter, our rights to free speech are not respected, and nor is our diversity of thought. We need a president who condemns Nazis, not students of color expressing their freedom of speech.
And now for part of UC, I'm reading a the ICE joint statement and also in collaboration with Mecha. In the spring 2019 semester, following the arrest of the University of Arizona students who are protesting immigration customs enforcement (ICE) in the appearance of Customs Border Patrol on campus, Arizona State University hosted a career fair in April. We demanded that ASU do more to create a safe and welcoming environment for documented students by standing in solidarity with the U of A students and by refusing to allow ICBP on campus. After an organized protest and a meeting with the involved organizations with ASU, faculty, ASU promised that students would be at least notified in advance if ICE, CBP were going to be on campus in the future. Recently, in the fall of 2019 semester, on November 13, 2019, College Republicans United invited ICE on campus, and ASU failed to send a notice of this event. On November 20th, Michael Crow stated at a forum that because there was one officer present and not operating in an official capacity, ICE as an agency was not present or invited to campus. However, College Republicans United advertised their events by saying that they would be hosting ICE. In addition, because student organizations must describe their events when they request space on campus, ASU should have known at least 48 hours in advance that ICE officials will be on campus. When undocumented students hear that ICE or CBP is going to be on campus, we generally feel unsafe due to the psychological traumas the ICE CBP has caused within our communities. ASU should have notified students regardless of police presence or personal visitation.
We made clear that we are not trying to deny the public support ASU has shown toward undocumented students by signing the amicus brief, urging the Supreme Court to protect Black lives, and helping host a dinner to raise funds for scholarships. However, this cannot be the end, the all-be-all of ASU's commitment, and it is not a justifiable excuse for inaction of keeping undocumented students feel safe on campus. These responses have been consistently written with excuses and no apologies. They are blatant refusals to take further action in support of ASU's undocumented community. ASU claims to have built a campus environment that is welcoming to all students. But they forget that they promise because students have had to continuously demand it. We are here to remind everyone that true inclusivity requires continuous attention, and it is not achieved by simply engraving it on a granite statue. I am the president of Students for Justice in Palestine at ASU. I will now be reading a statement regarding recent protests of IDF soldiers on campus. Collective statement from the ASU activist community, Palestine protests and repression. Since the publication of an opinion column in the ASU State Press in support of the BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, and Palestinian human rights, and further with protests against ICE and Isreali Defense Forces, IDF, groups such as Hillel, Shabbat, and other pro-Israel organizations have come out in unison to decry the pro-Palestinian movement as anti-Semitic, even going so far as to connect the pro-BDS movement and the hanging up of anti-Semitic posters on campus together. The conflation of supporting Palestinian liberation with anti-Semitism is nothing new, and has been used since the beginning of Israel's occupation of Palestine. We fully deny and repudiate the claim that we are anti-Semitic. Opposition to the Israeli occupation of Palestine is not equivalent to the hatred of Jewish people. We, as the activist community, have consistently fought against Nazism on campus and all forms of oppression against marginalized people. It is in this spirit that we oppose both ICE and the IDF and mobilize against them under the lawful protection of the Constitution's First Amendment. We reject the notion that groups such as Hillel and Shabbat speak for the entire Jewish community on campus. The students and non-students who signed and released a statement labeling an opinion column in support for Palestine as anti-Semitic represent the pro-Israel establishment consensus within certain Jewish community organizations. As noted in a separate statement released by one of the undersigned organizations, there is a long and rich history of Jewish opposition to Zionism. According to Jewish Voice for Peace, a Jewish pro-Palestinian activist group, Zionism is a settler colonial movement that denies the right of return to Palestinians and establishes an apartheid state. Zionism cannot be conflated with Judaism or the Jewish people. The smear that we are anti-Semitic attempts to direct attention away from what we are really fighting for. We support BDS and we disrupted the IDF event because of the injustices and genocide being perpetuated against Palestinians by Israel, which has been happening for more than 50 years. The call to boycott Israel's apartheid was modeled after the successful boycott movement against South Africa's apartheid. We understand that activism can be intimidating, and the attendees of the IDF event indeed felt this way. But it is worth mentioning the fear Palestinians were struck with when they heard that the very military apparatus that is massacring their people, separating their families, and bombing their lands was being hosted and promoted on their campus. We could not sit by and ignore IDF propaganda events without attempting to inform the public of the egregious human rights violations occurring in Palestine. In the wake of this protest, the university separately called in each president of the groups involved in the ICE and IDF protests on November 13, 2019. We view this as an attempt to pacify and divide our resistance due to an influx of complaints that have come in from the Zionist community against students and community members who support Palestine. The university has also made an active effort to suppress not only legislation intended to encourage the university to divest from human rights abuses in Palestine and arms profiteers, but also resolutions in support of ASU Professor Scott Warren, in support of DACA students, and against the presence of ICE and CBP officials on campus, respectively. This is an attempt to silence the student voice within and without the ASU community, reversing a long history of USG taking positions on issues such as the recognition of the Armenian genocide, the Barrett fee increase, and threats to reproductive health care. The university has been actively complicit in these attacks against its own students, and this is unacceptable. The ASU activist community will stand firmly in supporting BDS and Palestinian liberation. We will not be deterred by false claims that we are anti-Semitic, when we consistently protest all forms of racism and oppression. We will continue to stand united in defense of our community and in defense of the parts of the ASU community that we have stood with during these protests. Sign, Students for Socialism at ASU, No Mas Muertes at ASU, Mecha de ASU, Multicultural Solidarity Coalition at ASU, Black Lives Matter Phoenix Metro, Party for Socialism and Liberation Phoenix, Undocumented Students for Education Equity, Young Democratic Socialists of America at ASU, and Students for Justice in Palestine at ASU.
My name is Zara Tigola. I am the president of the Black Graduate Student Association, the founder of the Multicultural Solidarity Coalition, and Minister of Activism at Black Lives Matter Phoenix Metro. Last October, the Arizona State University Multicultural Solidarity Coalition became aware of a photograph by Annie LeBrout of a white woman in blackface on the wall of the Counseling Services office at ASU Tempe. The Multicultural Solidarity Coalition posted the image on Facebook, where it reached nearly 2,000 people and was shared among students, counseling staff, and administration. Rather than acknowledge and apologize for the harm the offensive photograph caused of black students, ASU quietly removed the image. ASU's state press questioned the image's existence despite two extensive interviews with another black student and the student who took a picture of it. They ultimately cited LeBrout's supposed intent as a reason not to report on the image, nor the upset it caused black students. And here's a quote from one the state press edited. After much discussion with my editors, we decided state press is not publishing the article. We learned more about who is behind the photo, Annie LeBrout, and the intent of it. After taking a closer look at the actual image, we didn't have enough material to publish. When we inquired further, we were assured by state's non-black diversity officer that it was not racist. Regardless of Annie LeBrout's intention, ASU students of color were made to feel unsupported and isolated in an office that is supposed to be a respite from the stressors of campus life. LeBrout has a reputation for being edgy and provocative, and the blackface image at ASU's Counseling Center is not the only time she has played on historically racist themes to create controversial images. LeBrout referenced racist tropes, likening black men to gorilla-like predators of white women when she dehumanized LeBron James by photographing him as King Kong, gripping white model Giselle Bundchen for a magazine cover. We are disappointed by state press, who is refusing to amplify the voices and experiences of marginalized students at ASU. We are disappointed that ASU counseling would remove the racist image without apologizing to black students. This speaks to the larger issue students of color face at ASU, which had its share of blackface controversies amongst staff, at football games, and at fraternity parties dating all the way back to 1988. ASU is a hostile environment for students of color who feel there's no institutional support that takes into consideration the bullying and harassment that non-white students face at predominantly white institutions. Taking the blackface down after we're in public is not enough. To demonstrate they genuinely care for the well-being of black students, ASU counseling must issue an official statement of apology, acknowledging that students felt uncomfortable and bullied by a blackface photograph. Create a training similar to Safe Zone that promotes racial and cultural competency. Counselors who have completed this course would display a sticker that students of color can find allies. The Council of Coalitions and the Multicultural Solidarity Coalition must be involved in approving the content of the training. Allow students to choose counselors of a specific race or cultural background, the same way students are allowed to choose the gender of their counselor. And finally, we're asking them to host a campus-wide event with the Black African Coalition on the importance of healing from racial trauma. This is signed by the Multicultural Solidarity Coalition, the Black Graduate Student Association, Mecha de ASU, Black Lives Matter Phoenix Metro, the Black African Coalition at Arizona State University, Students for Socialism at ASU, the National Council of Negro Women at ASU, the Black Undergraduate Law Society at ASU, Undocumented Students for Educational Equity, Students for Justice in Palestine at ASU, the African American Men at ASU, and the NAACP at ASU. first real quick. Zarrata, the last name Tecola, Teacola.
So my name is Alexander Sobony, last name is spelled Sojourny. I just want to first make sure that I am clear over here. I'm not there within any capacity within the Black Catholic Coalition, but I also just want to talk about the Black Catholic Coalition is there for all African American students, as well as Black students, just for support as well as allyship. And the capacity in which we're here and which I'm here is just talking about the incident of what happened with blackface and just making sure that we're here for all students. Just making sure that, we can just be an outlet and an organization that supports all as well as advocate. So that's my statement.
My name is Benjamin Cooper, BenjaminCooper. I'm just going to give a short statement regarding the response of the Jewish community and the administration to some of the events that have occurred recently, and my thoughts on that. So there has been a long and troubling history of racist and anti-Semitic incidents at ASU, as long as I've been present here. These include a person holding up a sign that said, "Islam is a religion of hate." Posters that appeared on campus when I first started that said, "It's okay to be white," implying a reference to the racist conspiracy theory of white genocide. Posters for the hate organization Identity Europa, which is an organization that was present at the Charlottesville rally. Incidents with College Republicans United and Rick Thomas, which included tweets using the triple parentheses dog whistle. An attempt to invite Milo Yiannopoulos, pictures taken of members of CRU dressed as James Alex Fields, the man who murdered Heather Hare, and the use of the N-word at a live apology for racism. The university response in almost all of these cases was to deny that racism is a major issue at ASU and to blame the problem on outside forces. The most recent incident regarding anti-Semitism and hate was the posting of posters by a white supremacist organization called Volksfront. The response of the Jewish community in the past to incidents like this has been muted. But in this case, the organizations such as Hillel put out statements condemning the posters that specifically targeted Jews, despite the fact that that in the past, organizations such as Identity Europa, which are replete with anti-Semites, had also been trying to recruit on campus. In this incident, in addition, they also put out a statement that conflated the BDS movement with Nazism, and also, in response to the resolution promoting divestment from companies involved in the occupation of the West Bank, members of the organization repeatedly conflated BDS with anti-Semitism in general. In addition, the administration has told me that as a senator and as a Senate, we are not allowed to take positions that contravene the official ones of the university, or at least this was implied. This is not true according to the rules of the USG. There's also a wealth of precedent of the Senate taking positions on issues that don't directly relate to those that the administration has taken. This includes statements and resolutions on the Bear fee increase, the recognition of the Armenian genocide, a divestment resolution that passed the Senate in 2012, a resolution supporting the Title X program, and a resolution commemorating missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and transgender individuals. All of these have come forward in the USG Senate. This new attempt to repress resolutions and statements on the part of USG is a threat to the voice that students have through their USG representatives. In addition to the resolution on divestment, resolutions supporting DACA students, supporting ASU professor Scott Warren, and opposing the presence of ICE and Customs and Border Protection on campus were collateral damage in this most recent attempt to silence student voices. If USG cannot take positions that go against those of the administration, how will we oppose unfair tuition and fee increases in the future? All that's left to us is to review budgets and approve travel grant requests, jobs that could easily be filled by non-students. What this means is that student leadership and student-led programming just means administrative-led programming with student labor. In addition, on the part of all these institutions, I have never seen such a vigorous response to perceived anti-Semitism than I have seen in the instance of a proposed resolution to divest ASU from the occupation in the West Bank and also from arms manufacturing companies. According to these institutions, shutting down a nonviolent movement against human rights abuses is more important than opposing Nazism and white supremacy. They have repeatedly attacked the left and organizations representing students of color, calling us anti-Semites and comparing us to Nazis, abandoning any attempt to stand in solidarity in the face of white supremacist organization on campus. This shows the priorities of these institutions. This shows that the priorities of these institutions are to defend a political commitment to the state of Israel, not to protect the Jewish community from anti-Semitism.
Hello, I'm Asia Brown, ASIA EROWN, and I'm the chairperson of Moviemento Estudiantil Chicanx Aztlan chapter at ASU, also known as Mecha. Members of Mecha were present at the protest taking place on Wednesday, November 13th, after ASU allowed Palestians United, a pro-Israel organization, to host an event on campus with ICE and IDF, where the safety of our Palestinian and undocumented students was threatened. We stood in solidarity with our fellow student activist organizations that night, with as much vigor as we do today, and will continue to do so. An event similar to this occurred in spring 2019 semester, where ASU approved of another event where CDP was invited to campus, without warning or notice to its fellow students. And once again, we are fighting to be heard and asking where was the warning. Recent news has come to light where there was blackface imagery being showcased at the ASU Counseling Center, a place where students are supposed to feel safe and supported. ASU does not seem to be welcoming to all students as they claim to be. Mecha ASU will continue to stand in solidarity with its Palestinian